Hey, Dr. Christianson here with you. So let's talk about essential fats and their relevance to thyroid disease. For starters, let's get some definitions underway. Well, what are fats? So fats are hydrocarbons. These are long chains of carbon atoms that are strung together with one bond between them or two bonds between them. Where those bonds occur, how many bonds they are, those determine the omega number of the fat. You might hear about like omega-3, omega-6, omega-9. So these chains of carbon have an alpha end and an omega end. And if you go to the omega end and you count up 3 carbons, slap in a double bond, well, that's an omega-3 fat. It's that simple. Now, another big way in which fats are categorized is how saturated they are. So we got the carbon atoms, and around each carbon, there's room for hydrogen atoms to attach. If every possible space that could be occupied for hydrogen is occupied, we call that a saturated fat. It's totally full, it's saturated with hydrogen. And on the other hand, if there are many seats that are left open, that's an unsaturated fat, or a polyunsaturated, or a monounsaturated. So that's the main nomenclature. Now, the relevance to our health is that fats play a big range of roles in regulating our body's chemistry. You know, every cell in our body, we've got probably a few trillion. Each one's kind of like a little person. You know, when the cells take in nutrients and they let out wastes. They've got to eat and they got to poop. And how well they do that is a function of their cell membranes. So the cell membrane to the cell is kind of like the digestive tract to a person. And the cell membranes are comprised of phospholipids, which are fatty acid-based molecules. So the integrity of every cell in your body is a function of the available fatty acids. Now, of the dozens and dozens of fatty acids that play roles with cell membrane formation, regulation of inflammation, formation of nerve tissue, pretty much all those fats, we build them, meaning we make them when we need them. We cannot run out of them. Some of those fats that we make also happen to show up in the diet, just because there's not that many molecules used in the whole world of biochemistry and biology. You know, humans, plants, whatever else, we use the same building blocks. So a lot of those fats are there, but we don't need them from the diet. That's not how they really come into our systems. Cholesterol is a big example of that. It's a fat that we need, but we make it. So it happens to be in the diet, but we don't depend upon it from the diet. So there's only 2 fats that we need that we cannot make, and those are called the essential fatty acids, or EFAs. The 2 of those are linoleic and linolenic acid. These are in the category of omega-6 and omega-3 fats. They're ones that have a special important roles to play with inflammation. So inflammation is something that allows our immune system to identify what's wrong and then fix it. But we now know that in a lot of cases of chronic disease, inflammation is not well regulated. So the immune system may not attack what it should, or it may attack what it shouldn't, or it may not identify what it should or should not attack. And it turns out that a lot of this regulation is by molecules called eicosanoids, and some of them start it all, some stop it all, and some regulate it. Now, our eicosanoids and the balance of those types that we have is related to our overall fatty acid intake. So if we consume fats that allow us to regulate inflammation and stop it when we need to, we're less apt to have errors. Now, I don't want to make it out that there's no other factors, because there are. You know, this is more of a proclivity, more of a tendency. So if something's going wrong in your body, that might lead to inflammation, and you don't have the means to well regulate inflammation, it might be worse than it would otherwise. But it wouldn't have happened unless something else would have already given rise to it. And that's the relevance there. So what we know is that these fats are things that we need. Some show up in the diet and some we make. Now, of those in the diet, there's still those that we have to convert and activate. So it's a generalization. Omega-6 fats, they're important ones. That's the linoleic acid. And they can play roles either starting or stopping inflammation. There's a lot of thought in the past that omega-6 always raised inflammation or always caused oxidative stress. And we now know that's not the case. It turns out that people can have inflammation and oxidative stress, and they may consume omega-6 fats, but the one doesn't give rise to the other. So I won't spend too much more time on that, but I've written on that in really good detail. The short synopsis is, don't be afraid of omega-6 fats. Things like walnuts, sunflower seeds, these are good foods. They're helpful for you. People that consume them have less inflammation, less chronic disease, and less early death. So nothing to fear there. Now, the big category that is very common to be low in are some of the omega-3 fats. There's one main omega-3 fat that's from plants called alpha-linoleic acid. And this is the one that we cannot make, that we do need, we do depend upon. If we have adequate amounts of this, also called ALA for short, if we have that, then we turn that into EPA and DHA. Those are two more biologically active omega-3 fats. Now, those two are not found in plants, kind of, sort of not. There are algae products that do extract them from algae, so that's kind of an exception. But normal healthy diets with a lot of plant foods will not give us EPA and DHA. And they're also not found in most sources of fat, with the exception of seafood. So these are two that play very critical roles with modulating inflammation. And we've seen specific data relative to thyroid disease, that those that have more of these types of fats in their bodies, they're less apt to develop autoimmune thyroid antibodies. And we also see that they have lower amounts of pro-inflammatory eicosanoids and pro-inflammatory cytokines. This is a case to where pro doesn't mean good. You don't want things that encourage unchecked inflammation. So these are critical. They lower the body's inflammatory load. They can make you less apt to have autoimmune responses against your thyroid, and they can make you more able to heal and recover properly. So if EPA and DHA are the important ones, those do come primarily from fish and from fish oil. Now, those that are consuming vegetable ALA, they can make EPA, and if their diets are low in fat overall, they may also make DHA out of that. So my vegan friends, you can usually do well with ALA on a lower fat diet. But the two that are really critical are EPA and DHA. So if you are able to consume those directly in a pre-made form, that's probably the most biologically active. So here's the big wrinkle. Fish oil is a great source of EPA and DHA, but it can also be a really high source of iodine. And that's the double-edged sword. We want your body to control inflammation, but we don't want to consume iodine that drives specifically thyroid inflammation. When your iodine gets above a target, it makes your immune system more apt to attack your thyroid. It slows down your thyroid, and it also makes your body less responsive to circulating thyroid hormones. So I put a lot of work into sourcing fish oil and tracking its iodine content. This is the kind of thing to where, if you imagine like the frustrated writer with the old typewriter who would always throw a page in a garbage bin, this is a big garbage bin. It's got a lot of pages in there. So it's taken a lot of testing, a lot of iterations, but we've got some good stable sources that are negligible in fish oil, in iodine. The amounts they contain are less than a few micrograms, so not enough to cause any problems. Other big thoughts about fish oil, there can be other contaminants that are not iodine related. Main ones are PCBs, toxic heavy metals, and dioxins. So towards the goal of supplying optimal amounts of essential fats for good thyroid function, I've created Omega Pure. And this is a very simple thing. The dosing on this is 1 capsule daily with food. Now, the time of day doesn't matter, and so because of that, I suggest doing it in the morning. Most of us, if we get the rituals out of the way in the morning, we can go on with the day and just not worry about them. If we don't get them out of the way in the morning, the day might collide with us and they may not happen. So 1 daily in the morning with food and Omega Pure. And with that, you're set on the key essential fats for controlling inflammation and optimizing your thyroid health. All right, Dr. Christianson here with you. Take great care. Bye-bye.